Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible.com. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/about-to-break. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. This is a great opportunity to take books with you wherever you go. You're traveling, you're on the road, and let's be honest, books are heavy, but Audible.com lifts the burden off of you. And it allows you to take books with you wherever you go. You can listen to them on the go. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/about-to-break. Again, that's audibletrial.com/about-to-break for your free audiobook.
No, I'm not a writer.
Okay.
Something is about to break.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to About to Break. This is episode 008 with my friend Matt Marcy. Matt's a magician, a writer of his own web series called Disillusioned. That's really about trying to find peace of mind and hope in all of this in an art form that sometimes doesn't get the respect that it deserves. And so we talk about that. We talk about magic. I just got to tell you guys, I am loving these conversations. Thank you so much to everyone who's sending me notes and feedback and letting me know just what some of these conversations have meant to you. And it's been cool. It's been really, really encouraging to hear people who are just challenged to do the art they love and try to pay the bills in the process. So keep your head up, everyone. You guys are awesome. Even if you're not into magic, if that's not your thing, Matt is a great businessman. He's an incredible writer and just a really, really creative dude. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the incredible Matt Marcy. Hey guys, welcome to About to Break. I'm your host, Taylor, and I am joined by my good friend, Matt Marcy, who is an incredible entertainer, comedy magician, and the good kind. He's the good kind of comedy
The good
magician.
kind.
Yeah, the kind that you go, wow,
that.
I didn't know I liked magic, and I friggin' love this guy. So not only that, he's recently done, when did your web series come out? Was it
It came out, I can't even remember now, but it really, basically early last year. And this year I went to a festival and we won a Best Comedy Award, which is very exciting.
So cool.
For a web series about the life of a magician.
Yeah, it's called Disillusioned. And I thought, this whole series on this podcast is about the ups and downs of living life as an entertainer. And your web series was so hilarious and really kind of hit on what it's like, man. What it's like behind the scenes to be the person on stage, trying to offer an audience a feeling that you're just trying to maintain yourself sometimes.
It's true. Often I am disillusioned about the career I've chosen, as I think most of us are.
What got you to be a magician? How did you end up doing this, and how did you end up doing it for a living?
I ended up doing magic the way I think a lot of magicians do. I just got interested in it when I was a kid, and then got more serious about it as I got older, and worked my way through college doing little shows on the side, and got out of college and decided not to get a job and try and do this crazy magic thing as a career.
You started performing before then for money, right? When was your first paid
Yeah,
gig?
in my late teens, I started doing small gigs, and I started working the Magic Castle as a junior member for their annual junior week there. And
now, for people who don't know what the Magic Castle is, describe, because I always try to describe it.
it's hard to describe.
And every time I try to describe it, it sounds really lame. But I think, give us a little taste. What is the Magic Castle?
The Magic Castle is a private club for magicians in Hollywood, California. And it has been there for over 50 years. It is sort of the mecca of the magic world where people come to travel. And it's a clubhouse that has many different showrooms where they do magic shows nightly, as well as bars and a restaurant. And in order to go, you have to be a member or with a member or have a pass from a member or have some connection to get in. And nearly all of the great magicians in the world have performed there. And it is a fantastic place to perform and is a great place to be around other magicians and learn your craft and get the experience. For those of you who aren't totally enthralled in the magic world as we are, for a magician, this really is. It's kind of like the mecca of magic. It's a place where you want to, if you're a magician, you want to at least get in to go and see. And if you're lucky, you get to perform. And Matt, you have performed how many shows? A lot of shows there.
Any idea? Have you kept any track of it?
It's over 1,000, I think, at this point, maybe. After 20 years. It's been 20.
Yeah.
I realized my first week there was in August 94, which is
Yeah.
now 22 plus years ago. So, when you work there, you do a lot of shows in a week. You'll do 21 or maybe 25 or more shows in a week if you're doing brunch shows and things like that. And so over 22 plus years, it adds up to a lot of performances there. And I think you're right. A lot of magicians all over the world aspire to go work there. I was just lucky I grew up in California and had a connection to get in there because I was here and I was able to do it. But I've seen a lot of magicians all over the world who are, dream to go work at the Magic Castle. It's just a great place to perform magic.
So cool. I'm first time back in like 7 years. I'm there this week.
So awesome.
And I'm telling you, man, it is one of those places. I was talking to someone last night. In everything in life, there's like this law of diminishing returns. The first time you went to Disneyland and went on Star Tours, you were like, it's amazing. I'm like in the movie. And now you go on it and you're like, yeah, I'm watching a TV and someone's shaking the box, But
you got to drink more.
That's what you do. See, Disney doesn't let you drink. You gotta go across the street. Maybe that is the magic of the Magic Castle.
Exactly.
There's like 5 bars.
You just
there.
drink more, and it keeps getting more exciting every time.
Oh man, because I tell you, I feel like I still go there, and even though it's we've been lucky enough to be around it for years, I turn into like a 5-year-old kid. I'm like, it still has some of that magic, that Christmas morning feel. That
it's so funny. They do brunch shows for kids there. It's
Yeah.
a 21 and over club, but on the weekends they allow kids to come in for brunch shows. And I was going there as a kid for brunch when I was maybe 8 years old with people who were members, and they still play the same overture music now for that show that they played when I was 8 years old. And when I'm standing backstage and they are playing that overture music, even now, sometimes I will be instantly transported back to some 8-year-old kid interested in magic, sitting there waiting for the show to begin. It is a crazy. First of all, it's crazy they haven't updated their music. Things move slowly in the magic world,
right?
But it's also neat, given that much time,
Yeah, I was at the castle on Founders Day on the 2nd, and Brian Lee, that was his 30th year anniversary that day.
He's the stage manager.
He's been the stage manager for 30 years.
Yeah. Well, maybe when he retires, we'll get new.
It's exclusive to Brian.
Exclusive to Brian.
Yeah, it's funny. People who, you probably get some crazy questions being a magician.
Sure.
But people always ask, how did you get involved in this? Because as a kid, everybody got a magic kit. Mm-hmm. Everyone saw a birthday party magic show. But very few people go to the point of saying, I think I'm going to pursue this as a career.
I don't think people realize it can be a career. I mean, I think that every magician has had the experience of meeting someone and they say, what do you do?
Oh, yeah.
And they say, I'm a magician. And then they say, okay, but what's your real job?
My mother-in-law is still surprised I can make money doing it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like an actual job to people.
Right.
Because it's not an actual job, but it is a job, and you can make a living, and a very good living, entertaining people with it. And as we've talked about before, in a lot of cases, a better living than you can make being a working actor, comedian, singer, other kinds of performance, because variety artists tend to demand higher fees and be able to work in more venues and work longer in their life, I think, too. I think that magicians can continue to perform until they're 80, 90 years old. We've seen it happen.
That's true, yeah.
You don't see them having the same relevancy problems or aging problems that would happen, like if your voice goes, if you're a singer, say, as you get older, or if you're an actor and the parts change. For magicians, you can keep doing that act if it's a solid act, or you adjust the act, but keep doing it. I mean, you think of Billy McComb, who was a magician that did comedy magic until maybe the day before he died at 80-some years old, and was still hilarious and amazing and enthralling audiences. There's something cool about that.
That's really cool. I've never thought about that. That's encouraging to me,
Yeah. No, your future's still ahead of you.
Good.
You got a long career ahead of you there, Taylor.
Well, and the podcast is not about how to break into the entertainment industry. It's about kind of the highs and lows. It's about dealing with the ups and downs. And so I love that you said it's a business, because a lot of people have an artistic bent and they just think, I want to do this, but the minute you want to do it for a living, there's other things that come into play.
Sure. And when I was a kid, I wanted to be a magician, and I thought I would just do shows.
Yeah.
But that's not how it works. Of course, you have to start essentially a small business and get those shows and get clients and market and deal with everything that comes along with that. And I often say to people, magic is a great hobby, but it's a really tough job,
Yeah.
And people who just do it for the love of it, which is fantastic, and how we started, just doing it for the love of it, it's great. But once it becomes a job, everything is more calculated. What you're going to work on, the material you're going to develop. When you buy a prop, is it going to be able to fit on the airplane? I mean, that's a consideration you don't have when you're 16 years old and doing your illusion for fun in a talent show, because it doesn't matter. But there's a practicality to it that comes along with being a professional. That things are required that aren't required when you're just doing it for fun.
Yeah. What was one of the biggest surprises for you once you said, okay, I'm going to make this my career. I'm going to pass on, going to school for something else, and this is going to be the focus. What was one of the biggest surprises when it came to the business side for you?
Well, I mean, I did go to school for something else, and then decided to not follow whatever path that might have been and go back and do magic. Because for one thing, I am not the kind of guy who would do well in a 9-to-5 office job that is essentially the same every day. I like a lot of variety, and being in business for yourself and doing magic offers that. And that has all been great. But the business side of it, I think, was a surprise. I'm not trained in business. I didn't think much about it until I sort of suddenly had to. Yeah. I didn't think much about how to market things and how to sell myself. I was more interested in developing the show and the material. But you can have the best show in the world. If nobody knows about you or nobody hires you, you're doing it alone in your room.
Right. And I think not just for magicians, for a lot of artists, they've got this act, or they've got this, this series of songs that they've written, or they've got this screenplay, and it's that struggle of how do I take this and turn it into something that people are going to be able to see.
Sure. And I think it's an ongoing struggle throughout life, because the way you market things and what people want changes over time. I mean, we had earlier talked about there was a big shift in the way this worked when I was just starting to do this professionally. When I was very young, we were still in the era of you send out VHS tapes of your show, and you print 1,000 headshots, and you try and mail them to people, and then some people would make like brochures or fancy packaging, and you try and get to an agency or something, someone who can book you. This is before social media or YouTube or any of the much easier digital video ways.
There was no online promo kit. It was all that little folder that you opened up, and there's the business card and the...
and your Betamax, promo video that, costs a fortune.
Right.
And I feel like I'm just a little too old to have been at the cutting edge of the revolution of like sort of modern technology and how that worked. When I was starting out, I was doing the old method, and then I never really developed a Twitter following. Now I have more of that, and I certainly have videos online and that kind of a thing. But there was a big shift around that time, and I feel like the next generation of magicians after me are both creating magic for those mediums and learning to market and to share that magic through those mediums in ways that I didn't ever even consider growing up. They didn't exist.
Right.
It was
Well, the advancements in technology have opened doors for artists, because I remember being in high school and having a band. I had a little band, and we wanted to make a CD, and we had to spend ridiculous amounts of money to go to somebody's studio who had this massive computer system and all the mics and the mixers and everything. And now you can get a MacBook and you can sting and just
do we are recording a podcast to send to the world.
I know, this is science.
In our living room,
yeah. This wasn't possible all those years ago.
And I still feel like I don't really know the best way to utilize this new media for marketing, as well as some people who are younger maybe do. But as you get older, it also becomes easier because just more people know you. So I have more established connections, and that helps sort of balance out the lack of online presence. I mean, I have a website and all that kind of stuff, but I don't push it the way I see some of the younger magicians doing.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people undervalue. I mean, you could talk a little bit about this, because this would apply to anybody in entertainment. But how much of it is developing your art, developing your material, and how much of it is being around people and making those connections and networking? Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if there is a definitive answer or an answer that applies equally to everybody. I mean, I think different people have different paths towards sort of artistic success and financial success in this field. When I was young, back before the internet, I would send out postcards, and I would, try and contact managers and agents and and mostly work on developing my show. And what you hope is that over time you develop a strong enough show and a strong enough performer that people see you and will hire you or recommend you, or you sort of become known, or you get in with an agent who books you a lot, or in an industry that sort of books you a lot, one of the subfields where you might perform. But you never stop networking. You never stop trying to, connect to people, sending out newsletters, letting people know what you're doing, keeping yourself in mind. There's a lot of competition. Now there's more competition because it is so easy to make a website and a promo video and send it out to people.
And to edit it in a way that makes you look like you've got an act before you ever do.
Right. Well, I think we all are aware that there are lots of people that have the best demo reels in the world and no show whatsoever. And this is a struggle we all go through in this field. Because
and it doesn't happen with singers. I mean, a singer, if they're going to send a promo, you're going to hear them sing, but you could look at 10 different magicians promos online and not see them do a single routine or interact with somebody.
That's a good point. That may be true. And I also think that you can see a 3-minute promo that looks great, but when you hire them for a 45-minute show, I mean, you see these performers who have 10 minutes of great material that they pack into 45 minutes, and you're like, wait,
it's like online dating. I mean, how many people
just
they
like
put all the best stuff out there? You show up and you're like, I've seen all this. What else you got?
Wow, you got quite a dating experience, haven't you? As they say, all it takes to be a magician is a business card. You tell people that you are one.
That's true.
And how do they know the difference? They don't even know it could be a job, so why not?
Well, it's weird. Steve Martin said magic is, I love this quote, and it also saddens me, but he says, he started off as a magician and worked at the magic shop at Disneyland, but he said magic is a great hobby for someone who wants to perform but has no talent.
That's great.
Because of the fact that, and this is absolutely not true, but you can't walk into a guitar store and walk out with a guitar and say, I'm a great guitarist.
Sure.
But you can walk into a magic shop, spend $20, you come out with a couple trick decks, and you go, I'm a magician.
And it will fool people.
And it will.
And because it works by itself, you don't need any particular sleight of hand for those kinds of tricks. They're just developed so that anybody can do them, the kinds of things that you start out learning when you're a kid. And because people don't have a lot of experience with magic, like they do with, say, singing or comedy or other forms of performing arts, they don't really know the difference.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we all know what a bad singer sounds like because we've heard fantastic singers. But
and the funny thing is, if a magician or quote unquote magician who bought a trick in a shop shows it to you and it sort of fools you. And maybe they throw in a hack line or two that makes it a routine that they saw somebody else do. As far as you're concerned, that's what magic is, until and unless you have seen somebody better. And so many people haven't. I think a lot of laymen have a misconception about what magic is and can be. They don't have enough experience with the art form to even know what is possible. They just know what they saw their buddy do that he bought at the magic shop, or some kids party magician, and it's either that or the TV special they saw, or the trip to Vegas. There's no awareness that there's this giant body of magicians in the middle that are doing really fantastic, not only amazing magic, but really entertaining shows that I think that if they do see them, they are surprised at how entertaining the art form is.
You mentioned earlier you met someone, or you meet a lot of people really who they say, I didn't think I liked magic. And then I saw your show, and because they have this picture of a guy with a top hat and a cape and pull a rabbit out of the hat.
Maybe they have some stereotype.
Shoving a bird in his pocket or whatever.
Some stereotype of a magician. Whether or not they've seen that magician or they just sort of have absorbed that stereotype through the culture. And there's a lot of teasing of magicians in popular culture. We've all seen the great jokes like that Steve Martin joke, and there's a lot of that. And some of it is fair, because there are certainly people in the magic world who fall into those categories, who really don't put any effort into creating something that is a show, but just do this. But there are also a lot of people that do and have great performances. And I think these laymen who don't know that, when they see that kind of a show, when they see a great show, are surprised. A lot of them don't realize that there is a great performing art. I think this is true of a lot of the variety arts, actually. I mean, who gets made fun of more than magicians? I don't know, mimes, ventriloquists, sometimes jugglers. I have seen horrible mimes, ventriloquists, and jugglers, but I've also seen really, really great mimes, ventriloquists, and jugglers. And when you see them, and these aren't names you would know, but they're people out there doing this for a living, you go, oh, I see why this is an art form. This is really fun. This is really, really great. There's something interesting here, or something to be said, or something I didn't expect. And that is true of all these variety arts. There's a reason that people get interested in them in the first place and try to create these amazing entertainment experiences.
I was thinking about how, growing up in magic, a lot of people will ask you, they'll say, how do you learn this stuff? Because the deal is, someone asks, teach me the trick, and you say, I can't tell you. And then everyone goes, well, how did you learn it? Like there's really this mystery around it. If I even wanted to learn this, where would I do it?
I think that was true when we were young. I think now with Google, that is no longer true. The answer is, you won't tell me? That's fine. I'll just go Google it.
Yeah.
Or I'll search for it on YouTube, and I will search for that trick. And if they can, a lot of tricks they can't find because they don't know what they're called, or they are original pieces that people don't know. But a lot of it you can. And it's certainly easy to find magic to buy, a show in Britain that is, I don't know what it's called, but it's like America's Got Talent. It's one of these talent shows, and a couple of years ago, a magician won. And his winning trick went viral on the internet, and a layman I know sent this video to me to watch this trick that he had won with. Well, the trick he won with is a fantastic trick, but it is a self-working trick called Card-a-Tune that has been around for 15 years maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that you can buy on Amazon for like $12.95.
And he won.
And it works itself.
And he won the whole thing.
And he won the whole thing by doing this. And not only did he win it, a layman saw this and was like, this guy's amazing. You should see. And he sent me the link. You should see this trick he did that he presumably came up with that is so clever. And I wanted to send a guy back a link to, the Amazon. Why don't you just buy it for yourself and learn it in an afternoon? And that is, I think, where magic gets its bad rap, because there is this idea that, once you know, you can buy a magic show.
Right.
And you can buy magic tricks, but you cannot buy the ability to entertain a crowd. That comes with developing a show.
But there is this kind of, people sum up magic as it's only as good as the last performer you saw. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like as a magician, a good performer, a good magician is not competition. A bad magician is what affects my business, because I've had people before who say, oh, we had a magician and it was a terrible experience, and they won't hire a magician again.
Right, but that goes back to what I was saying, is because they have a limited experience with it. If they had hired 10 magicians and the first 9 were great and the 10th was bad, it wouldn't be a problem.
You're right, yeah.
If you hear a bad band, you're not suddenly like, I listened to a band and they weren't good, so I'm done with music.
Yeah.
The problem is they probably hired one magician and he was bad.
Yep.
And so because of their limited experience and knowledge of magic, that's what happens. Ironically, their limited knowledge and experience of magic is what allows some of the bad magicians to survive, because they don't know when they're saying hacky magic or bad magic or uninteresting stuff, particularly because they have really nothing to compare it to.
Right.
So if they bought this trick and it fools them and they put a couple of standard lines in and it works, they did their job as a quote-unquote magician.
Yeah.
And that if lay audiences had the exposure to magic that they have to other art forms,
right,
I feel like most magicians would be done, because the lay public would be onto them. And they'd be onto us, Taylor.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
They would know that it's all just the illusion of talent.
Well, and to give people context, Matt's talking from the experience of. A lot of people don't realize you can buy a trick, you can take it on stage, you can present it, and no one knows whether you came up with that, whether it was yours. And sometimes people will take a piece that's a standard thing or a concept, and they'll turn it into their own deal, which is great. Matt's one of these guys who you go see a show, and you see stuff you don't see anywhere else because you develop your own material.
A lot of it, I do.
And I think a lot of times, magicians, it's like the difference between... a music singer-songwriter who's writing their own material, or a cover band. Sometimes
Sure. But I'm not sure that the audiences care so much. I mean, I used to think it was super important to develop original stuff, but really I develop stuff because I enjoy doing my own things, and I think of fun things to do. But people go see singers all the time who are doing covers. Yeah. Even great singers, even the best singers in the world do covers of other people's music, and they certainly do music that they didn't write.
Right.
And nobody has a problem with it. It ends up, it's what is the classic line? It's the singer, not the song kind of thing, right? So you see a magician, and you can see 2 magicians do the same trick that is maybe neither of their tricks. Right. But that does not mean it is the same show or that the audience appreciates it the same way. Just like any art form or performance art, you're taking these things. If you can do original stuff, that's great. Right. There are great singers who do original stuff. Right. Right.
Well, I think a key with it too is finding out who you are as an individual, and
Sure.
and being original. You're original, be yourself.
Right.
And maybe you're yourself doing a cover, but it's still different because it's you.
Right.
And one of the things I've realized, in this business of performing magic is that people aren't the guys that are really successful. They're not pitching it as I'm going to come do a show for you, because they can get anyone to do a show. They connect in such a way where people go, I want Matt Marcy to come to my event. And now they're hiring you to come because of their connection with you or their experience with you or they've seen you online.
Right. Well, and there's a style that everybody has. This is the same as hiring a comedian. There are a million
Right.
kinds of comedians, and some of them are doing all their own material. Some of them are doing borrowed material, of course, which is, not as good. Because unlike magic, I don't think you can go buy jokes like that, right?
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different in terms of that. But, they're all different styles, and even if they're talking about the same topic,
Right.
airplanes,
Yep.
it doesn't mean they're going to be doing the same show.
No.
And just because two magicians are doing a card trick, it doesn't mean they're going to be doing the same show. They're going to have a different style, and you would hope that one is better than the other in terms of that audience, what they want to see, who they want to hire. They're going to find the one that they find more entertaining, presumably.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to point out that there are magicians who are incredibly creative, who are doing groundbreaking, interesting magic and concepts out there. A lot of them actually don't perform professionally. They just develop these ideas and sell them to other magicians,
Right. Some of the most successful ones.
Right. Some of them, right? Like a songwriter who is not a
Right.
singer who would write a song and then
Yeah,
sell it to a singer
Yep.
to perform. And there are a few who do both.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes those are the ones who really skyrocket to the top of the field. Penn and Teller.
Right.
Copperfield,
Yep.
of course. People who are kind of developing interesting original stuff and able to perform it. But those people are rare,
Right.
as in any art form.
Yeah. I think let's give people a little. I'm sure people are going like, talk about the secrets, or there is a whole world.
Smoke and mirrors,
baby. There's a whole weird world when it comes to magic that people aren't aware of, and I think what's cool for us is it's the world is much smaller than I think in other art forms. Whereas like in magic, we've all been at events where there's David Copperfield, there's Penn and Teller. You could walk up to Penn and say hi to him. You could talk to him.
Right.
You have access to people in this industry that I feel like you don't always get in other, as a filmmaker or a musician. So
Right.
talk a little bit about that. Like growing up, how was that being able to?
Well, first of all, being in California at the Magic Castle gave me access to a lot of great performers that I wouldn't have had if I were anywhere else because they just happened to be here. But yeah, you're right. We are a small subculture. There is, I think, to a large degree, magicians tend to have a common, I don't want to say personality type, but there are certain things about magicians that make them want to be magicians that keep us connected to some degree. And because it is a small subculture of entertainment, it is more connected and more accessible to people, I think. Ironically, even though it's supposed to be secretive, it actually is more accessible. Magicians are very open and giving with each other about help and ideas and methods and things like that to help grow the community. I also think what's interesting is early, when I was in college, early in the internet days, back in the Usenet newsgroup days, which I don't even know if you remember, there was an alt.magic newsgroup, which was a very popular newsgroup and very highly trafficked. And I think because like a lot of subcultures that people are spread out, they needed a way to connect to other people in that field. And if you were in the middle of nowhere, you probably didn't know any other magicians. If you weren't living in a major city with a magic hub, like a magic shop or something, you didn't know anything. And this was a way for these people to connect to other people. And I think it started developing an online and national and international community of magicians early. At least I feel that way. On Facebook now, I get requests from magicians all over the world for no other reason than that they're simply magicians. These aren't people that I know or probably would ever meet, but there is a weird connection of like, we're both magicians, let's be friends on Facebook.
Yeah.
I doubt very much that, an out-of-work actor in LA is going to have some random out-of-work actor in Toronto Facebook request him because they just came across them and they happened to both be actors.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong, but it seems like there's not that kind of community that we have in magic.
How much did that community play into you know, your development as an artist, having other guys to bounce stuff off of?
Early on, a lot, and then less so as I became a professional, mainly because I didn't ever... The magic community has its own events, right? They have their own conventions, they have their own competitions, they have their own industry publications and magazines. And some magicians really get involved in the community that way. They're performing at the conventions. They're competing in these competitions.
And some guys make a career.
They make a career out of it. They develop magic tricks and lecture to other magicians and sell it, and that's their primary means of making a living. Some are developing a quote competition act, which is designed specifically within certain parameters to work in a competition where magicians are going to watch and judge you, and the way magicians judge a magic act is very different than the way a regular audience would. So the act is very different and is focused on different things. And some people, develop tricks and are write for these magazines. And the people in that community, in that hardcore magic community, I think are a group that I know and connected to, but wasn't really my focus. I was early on performing more for lay audiences, for real people, quote unquote, and not doing these competitions. I mean, to some degree, I did comedy magic, which those competitions are not slanted towards. There aren't really a lot of comedy.
Very technical and very
sleight of hand based or manipulation based. Very short. You have maybe 6 minutes.
Right.
It's hard to do comedy magic in 6 minutes. To really develop a show, you need more time. At least I do, the way I think.
Yeah. This is it's not unique to magic, but I feel like it's heightened in magic, this idea of performing for your peers and this need for validation
from your peers.
Yeah. What is that? Why is that?
Well,
because I know it exists other places, but I do feel like in magic it is very much
well, we all want to be respected by our peers, and I think that especially when you do these competitions, and especially if you're young and inexperienced, and then the people judging it are older, experienced magicians and may look up to, and that's a huge deal.
Yeah.
And I do think some people have managed to parlay those wins into very successful careers.
Right.
A lot have not.
Yeah.
But some have. Yeah. And it looks good to people outside the magic world, I guess, if you say, I've won 30 magic awards.
Right.
What we in the magic world know is that is meaningless, because there are tons of magic. There are important magic awards that do mean something, but there are a lot more that don't.
Some that you can just purchase.
You can just purchase. And every local group in every city gives out their annual award. And so just because you got the Close-Up Magician of the Year award from your local group of 20 magicians this year doesn't necessarily speak to the quality of your show, but outside, people wouldn't know that.
And while some people have made a career out of performing for their peers, I've also seen a lot of guys get stuck. They don't develop material that's useful outside of the community because their whole goal is I want to have status, or I want to win an award, or I want to get notoriety within the Magic Castle or another club. Yeah. And they don't ever work for other.
Yeah, it's a goal. I'm thinking of somebody right now who I won't name, though, who's like that, though, and desperately wants to win lots of magic awards.
Name the name. Don't name it.
And but also wants to make money at this and go out and develop a show. And maybe you can do both. Some people do, but if your goal is to develop something that is going to be for magicians,
right?
And within these limited parameters of what this competition of these conventions need, a lot of those shows don't overlap well with the reality of the world. I mean, if you can do 6 great minutes at a magic convention, no one else is going to hire you. Yes. There's no, in the old days, listen to me, back when I was a kid. But, back in the Vegas days before Vegas was what it currently is, there were variety shows and there were production shows. Oh, yeah. And you could have a 10-minute act and you could go work. You can't work with 10 minutes anymore. No. There's no one who's going to hire you outside maybe the Magic Castle. I mean, you need at least 45 minutes. Yeah. If you're doing cruise ships, which is a huge market for magicians, you probably need at least 90 minutes now, or more, which is a lot of time and material. And, your great, amazing 6-minute manipulation act that won the magic competition isn't going to get you very far in terms of booking those cruise ships or colleges or corporate events any of those places where
there is a pile. There's a long list of older magicians who won every award and who every young magician looks up to. And we know they're not paying the bills with that. Some of them are dentists. You know what I mean? I just think I think in any industry, I mean, we're talking about the world of magic because that's our place, but
Right.
I think in any industry, young actors, I think, get in this mix up where they're doing everything to try to impress each other instead of work on their art. You know,
Maybe. I think to be fair, though, we should point out that there are a lot of people in magic who do not desire to be full-time professional magicians.
Yeah,
they
that's
do
true.
it as amateurs who love it, or semi-professionals, part-time people, and for them it's a different story. I
Right.
think that's not the same kind of a thing. If they want to, these are a lot of people that go to the conventions, go to the lectures,
Right.
buy the products, read the magazines. I read the magazines, but
Yeah.
the people who are really sort of obsessed with the newest tricks and what's coming out and what's going on often are not the full-time professionals.
right.
If you go to a magic shop, they will tell you that their bulk of their business isn't professionals.
No.
Professionals aren't in magic shops buying tricks.
Right.
The people buying tricks are the amateurs who just do it for the love of it, like we did when we were young and
Yeah.
before we got jaded by being professionals and having to make a living at it.
Yeah. It is kind of fun though. I mean, with all that said, it's very fun that in this environment, you can be someone who's a hobbyist and you can be someone who's doing it full time. And I feel like there's this connection there for the love of the art that, like,
There is.
when you go to the castle any night of the week and all these guys are hanging out together.
Well, and a lot of the amateurs are very, very good.
Oh, just many are better than I am.
Better than professionals. Like,
Like-
they're not necessarily...
Like, you must be a great dentist because you're an awesome magician and you're not doing that for a living.
Yeah, exactly. You just love teeth
oh my
so
gosh.
much. The only
Listen.
thing I like more in card tricks is teeth. What can I say? Yeah, there are a lot of amazing amateurs out there. There are also a lot of terrible amateurs out there who don't
Yeah.
recognize they're terrible. And there are some terrible professionals out there who don't recognize they're terrible. I mean, it runs the gamut.
I want to talk a little bit about your web series.
Okay.
It's called Disillusioned.
Disillusioned. It's a pun.
It's a pun.
Is that a pun?
It is. I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
a play.
Why
Or
not?
play.
It's a play on words.
Yeah, play on words.
We'll take it.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit. Describe Disillusioned.
Well, Disillusion started as a theater show, actually, that I did many, many years ago. And my idea was to do a show that included magic, but wasn't a, quote, magic show, that was more narrative-based, had a story and a through line, and I ended up developing this 90-minute theater show that had some magic, and it had some multimedia, and it had some interactive pieces with the audience, and then it was sort of like a story, and it was a semi-autobiographical story, somewhat fictionalized, about my life growing up as a magician and struggling to make my way in the world, not just as a magician, but using magic as a sort of focus for everything else. So meeting girls was looked at through the lens of being a magician, and having success was looked at through, and money was looked at through the lens of having a magician, even from the time I was young, in the context of this show. And I did this show, 2 runs of this show, fairly successfully, and it was a lot of fun, and I worked really hard on it. And when it was over, small theater in LA is a lot of work and not a lot of reward, and it was a passion project, really, even though we actually did kind of make a little money at it, but it wasn't going to be something that would survive, really, for the long run. But I didn't want to just throw out everything I had written for it and the character I developed for it. So at first I thought, maybe I'll turn it into a TV pilot. you know? But everyone in LA's got a TV pilot. What does that mean? Well, what can I do to actually make this? Maybe we'll make it into episodes or webisodes and do it on the web. So I took some of the themes of that and I wrote 6 short webisodes, 6 to 8 minutes each. And having no idea what I was doing in terms of making any kind of a web show or TV show or anything like that, just decided, heck, let's figure it out and do it. And we kickstarted it to raise the funds for it, and I made these 6 episodes. And they're each sort of discrete stories, but there is a through line. They definitely got better as we went, as we learned. I would love to do season 2 at some point, or which I've already sort of sketched out, or even another series. Now that I know so much more, I mean, it's the first time I'd ever done anything like this, and they turned out, fairly well. They're pretty good. They look pretty good, and there's certainly problems with them, and I wouldn't hold them up as my opus necessarily, but I think that they are fun and entertaining, and give an insight into magicians in the world of magic that magicians really appreciate, and laymen can sort of see and go, oh, that's That's interesting.
And where can people see it right now?
It's online still. Yeah, you can go to, it has its own website at disillusionedshow.com, or it's on YouTube if you want to just search for it there.
And Matt's show, not only is it hilarious, but it really does give you a great glimpse into what life is like as a magician. You get to see him interacting, doing...
There's a lot of truth in the web series.
How much, this podcast, we talk about highs and lows. How much of that came from, things you observed in other people, and how much of it was, struggles that you had dealt with personally?
Well, the core struggle I think we all deal with in the matter, where most of us do. I do.
Yeah.
Struggling for success and fame and love and everything else through the lens of magic while you're dealing with it. A lot of that stuff I dealt with, especially when I was younger.
Yeah.
Trying to become a superstar like we all want to. You get older and you're like, well, maybe I'll just be a magician to make a living, and I won't end up being a superstar. But a lot of those desires that I still remember really feeling strongly, and trying to meet girls doing magic, and hook up with your assistant and all of those kinds of things that every magician does, and feeling jealous of other people who are doing better than you. That's something in magic, and maybe this is just a thing across the board. But
don't talk about it, man. That's...
you can be doing better than 99% of the people, but you don't think about them. You think about the 1% who's doing better than you.
Right.
I think this is an American thing. It's what drives us to be better and stronger, which is great. But there is that lack of appreciation for how far you've come sometimes, because you still always see the guy in front of you, nobody behind you. And there is this competition and I think jealousy that forms when you see other guys getting the better shows or getting the TV spot or something, especially when you feel like you're better than them. And why are they getting the show when you've worked harder?
Because
maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're not better than them, or maybe it's just that's how the world works.
Well, I think we've all kind of been sold this idea that if you work your butt off, everything's going to work out. And the truth is, that's not the case.
There's a lot of randomness involved. With
and a lot of times, you see a guy who's been doing it a year, whether you're an actor or how many stories have we heard of the guy who went on his first audition and now he's like a mega star? That doesn't happen to most people.
Well, and I think in magic, there's a weird thing happening now where you have a show like America's Got Talent or something like that, or Fool Us.
Right.
Fool Us less so, but where these people go on, these magicians who have very little experience performing, and they do their 90-second bit or their 5 90-second bits or something, and suddenly they've got 1 million Twitter followers, and they're famous, and they're so much farther along than people who've been, in the trenches working for 30 years and have killer shows.
Oh, yeah.
And I've seen people go on America's Got Talent who are some of the best performers in this business, and I know it and do terribly because it's not their format. And there is a weird thing about that. And a lot of those America's Got Talent people come out the other side and don't end up going on to do anything because they don't, or they have to then still start from scratch and slowly build a show.
Right.
Because, performing for 90 seconds for these judges on TV is not the same as standing in front of an audience of 1,000 for an hour and keeping them engaged.
Yes.
But yeah, there is a lot of that where you see this kind of stuff happening, and I think that it's natural to feel some twinge of jealousy, even if you think it's wrong, that guy is doing better than you, even if you're doing better than almost everybody else. It's a weird sickness that we have as Americans. I think I try and remember that. But I touch that was a long way to go. But I do touch on that kind of stuff in the series.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it's based on truth.
Yeah, sure. and it's truth it does pass over our no, how do I say this? It's I think a lot of it's universal. It's things that regardless of what you're doing for a living or for a hobby or where you're from, these are struggles we all deal with.
Right.
And what I love about it is you've been able to weave those through in a way where someone who doesn't know anything about magic, they're going to enjoy it, they're going to laugh, but they can also go like, yeah, I've been there. I've been in that moment.
Yeah, I hope that people have the themes are universal, even if the specifics of being a magician aren't. So they will relate to it. And there's some fun magic in it as well. So,
yeah. You've been doing magic now for, 20 plus years, something like that?
Oh, well, I'm 40 now.
Oh, you're so old.
I'm so old. Oh, boy, pack it in.
How many people can go, I'm 40 and I've been doing this career for over 20 years?
Well, that's what I said. I just realized my first week performing at the Magic Castle was 22 years ago.
That's insane.
It's insane. It's really insane. And before that, I was doing shows, not for money, but I was doing magic in talent shows when I was 6 years old at the summer camp, I mean, nothing good. But when I first got the bug, like a lot of kids do around that age, I would go out and perform and do it. And, I was doing school talent shows and performing anywhere I could. And so I've been doing magic tricks in front of groups for, 35 years or, give or take. I mean, eventually I'll figure out what I'm doing.
Well, I think it's funny too. We talk about the Magic Castle being like, for a lot of performers, it's like it's a bucket list thing. I want to do this. I mean, I think about, you've done theme parks. You used to do Wizards. I used to go see you do
Universal
Wizards
City Walk.
at Universal, and I mean, how many shows did you get to do there? So you not only developed this material, but you had all these opportunities that a lot of other guys who maybe were twice your age wish they had.
I was very lucky. Yeah.
And so, one of the things that I love about Matt is he's not only an incredible performer and a decent guy, which is also rare sometimes in entertainment, but he's also a very business-minded man, and he makes wise choices. And I think how much of that plays into the fact that you did some of this bucket list, like ambitious stuff when you're a kid, and then it's like, okay, I did that. Now I've got to build a career.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, maybe there's certainly still things on my bucket list that I want to do. But I think we're all driven to a different degree about, how we want to structure our lives. And that changes as we get older.
Yeah.
And when I was in college and just out of college, I was really, really driven. I mean, I was working my butt off to do magic, be it performing tricks, learning tricks, reading everything I could, constantly going out and doing shows for $25, performing anywhere I could, teaching magic to kids to make some money on the side, for years. Anything I could do.
Yeah.
And then as the career sort of like comes together and you get older and you get a family and for me, I just am more of a balance guy. I like balance in my life. I could make more money and do more shows if my focus was solely on maximizing those things. But for me, as I've gotten older, I think I've just decided that I want to make a good living, obviously, doing this. I love doing shows and entertaining people, but I also have other things in my life that I want to balance that out with.
Yeah.
And that works for me. Other people aren't like that. Other people are all or nothing, or just not as lazy as I am and are willing to do more of it. But I think that changes maybe with just age or something. But I've gotten to a place where, I'm still driven, but not like I was then. And I'm able to do new things like the web series, which was a new experience, something completely different that I'd never done before. I like that kind of thing now.
Having the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, to try something new and creative because, look, I mean, I've done a lot of shows in my life.
Right.
4,000 shows probably in my career now, and that's great. And I like doing them, but it becomes sort of not routine, but the same thing. You sort of know what to expect. Right. You put in a new trick, that's fun, but like stretching into like the web series, stretching into something that is totally different.
Yeah.
Is still rewarding and kind of fun.
Did that, going into that, and I mean, doing the theater show was probably one level of that, but then doing a web series and now you're dealing with production and video and all of these things, did you get some of that initial spark you had when you were doing magic the first time and it was fresh and new, like, or was it just like...
I loved every second of it. It was amazing. You're learning all this stuff. I surrounded myself with smart, talented
really
people.
Good people.
I mean... And you learn from them. I mean, it's all so interesting and new, and it was great, The other thing about it that I really loved, that I realized, I think, when it was over, is that magic is to a large degree a solo endeavor. And it's true that there's a community that can help you and you can work with. But when you're on stage, you're basically there alone. When you're traveling to do shows, which we do a lot, you're there alone. When you're sitting there reading magic books, you're there alone. When you're practicing your sleights in your room, alone most of the time. And ultimately you're creating this show. Maybe your friends help you in the community, helps you, but ultimately alone. Some magicians are smart enough to hire a director, maybe, but really it's not a team sport.
Right.
A web series is a team sport.
Yep.
Between the cast and the crew and everybody that was involved with everything from locations to catering to everything, we had 50 plus people that we were coordinating and seeing through this process. And there was something really neat about creating this project with a group where everyone was working towards this, which I imagine what it's like to make a movie and everything like that. But for us as performers, we don't experience that the same way.
No.
And I had not experienced that. Like trying to put out a final creative product that a huge group of people was involved with. And not only that, I was in charge of this group of people, right?
And
I was like managing it.
And wrote it.
I wrote it, and I don't know if starring is the right word, but I was in it.
Yeah.
I surrounded myself with better actors to help make me look better. But I had a director and a team of camera people and sound people and producers and then all these other actors involved and extras involved in everything that comes along with this. And we're talking about a very small scale project in the scheme of things.
Yeah.
But compared to me packing up a case of magic tricks and going out and doing them, just an entirely different level of production. And that was really fun.
Yeah. And I know that you're obviously, I mean, you'll do more productions like this, and I'd like to talk more about it. But when you were doing this and it was crazy, and I mean, you're still working and doing shows and all this, and you got the production going on, it must have been exhausting. But at the end of it, when it was over, were you a little bit like missed it? Did you?
Not immediately when it was over.
You're like, I took a nap.
But I do now.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody cares about any of this. Does anybody care about this?
Every time I do one of these, I think halfway through, I'm like, nobody's listening to this.
Nobody's listening. But if they stay tuned, I will give them the winning lottery numbers.
Oh, that's how we're going to end the podcast.
That's how we're gonna.
It starts with the 2, just so you know. We'll give that little teaser. We'll stick around for the rest. 2. No, I do think people care because... Here's the deal. You talk about the loneliness of being a magician, which sounds sad to say it out loud, but it's true. I mean,
it is true.
You're in your room, you're working on this stuff. You're in the office, you're doing the work on your computer. You're on the road, 3 days on the road to perform in front of people for 45 minutes.
Or on a cruise ship, 2 weeks on the road.
And
on the sea, away.
And 2 hours of that is on stage.
Right.
And so... that I feel like performers in general, so much of what we do isn't in front of the camera, isn't on the stage, isn't in a platform. And I think people are out there going, crap, does everyone else deal with this? Does everybody else feel this way? Or am I the only one who is...
Yeah, I mean...
Because the shows are fun.
The shows are fun, but they take up a very small percentage of your time. I mean, the amount of time I'm on stage versus the amount of hours in a year is minuscule, right?
Oh, yeah. Nobody quit magic because doing shows wasn't fun. Nobody stopped performing music because they didn't like singing.
Everything. Well,
it's all the other
It's everything
crap.
around it. I mean, I tell people the show is free. They pay me to travel.
Yeah. Yes.
Because that's the work, right? Getting there, setting up, dealing with the producers and the tech and the whatever it is you got to deal with in any given show. That's the work.
Yep.
The time you're standing there making people laugh and be amazed.
That's great.
That's why we got into it in the first place. It's just, unfortunately, not the bulk of your time.
Yeah.
Unless you're David Copperfield and you do 5,000 shows a year or something like that. Maybe then it is. But there's something different about being a performer, I feel like, that is somewhat isolating. I mean, the travel is a huge part of it. Being,
talk about travel.
People think travel is glamorous, and those people have never done it.
Yeah.
Traveling for work or traveling to do shows is not the same as going on vacation with your family. Right. It is not remotely the same.
Well, first of all, most of the time you're not going, I mean, except for like a cruise, you're not going to a destination. You're going to like...
Yeah, but even on a cruise, if you're going to a destination, you might often be going to some weird third world country where you have to make your way to the ship to join it.
And deal with customs.
Immigration.
I
mean, I have crazy stories about nearly being killed in cabs all over the world, about props being taken exam and being held in security in Vietnam in the airport because they thought I had stolen the sword from my show that was in my case.
The samurai sword?
They
thought you stole it?
They're worried about swords being stolen, apparently, in Vietnam.
That's the number one issue in Vietnam right now, apparently.
I was in a cab in Chile trying to get from the hotel or from the airport to my hotel. Guy didn't speak any English. So I'm in the back seat. He's in the front seat driving, and his 12-year-old kid is sitting in the passenger seat next to him. We're driving. I know we're going the wrong way because it's got to be close. And so I'm trying. He doesn't speak any English, so instead I take out my iPad. I pull up the hotel information. I'm like, I have it here. He reaches back and takes my iPad to look at it. And his 12-year-old kid, reaches across him and grabs the steering wheel. And he has got his iPad in front of his face, speeding down the highway while his 12-year-old kid is steering in the passenger seat, and I'm sitting in the back just going, I'm going to die in Chile.
And he didn't tell the kid to grab the wheel. Like, this apparently happens all the time.
Just a thing they do,
kid is just like, all right, cool.
All right, let's do it.
It's like one of the plays in the book.
It wasn't worth doing magic tricks to die this way, you know?
You deal with weather. I mean, I can't tell
delays, weather.
How many times have I had? You go to a gig and you're in some place that's nowhere near an airport. You're like 2 or 3 hour drive, so you fly into Denver or wherever.
Right.
You spend the night before. You're gonna wake up and drive, and you wake up and there's a foot of snow on the ground.
Yeah, or driving back to the airport. I was driving back in St. Louis to the airport to catch my flight. Storming blizzard, crashed cars all over the sides of the road.
Yeah.
Here I am going at like 12 miles an hour to try not to kill myself. And thinking I've got half hour to get
going to show business, they said. They told me it'd be great.
But I get to do what I love, right?
Yeah.
It goes back to what you were saying. Like, the show is great. It's all this other stuff around it. And remember, when you're dealing with this, you're alone. There's nobody there to help you.
Yeah.
You've got often hundreds of pounds of props with you and luggage and baggage that you're dragging everywhere. You can't leave that with somebody because you're not with anybody. I'm often in places where they don't speak English. It is great. I'm not saying this to complain, but it is a lot. That is the part that gets tiring and exhausting and challenging.
And what's challenging, and I mean, it's a blessing and also a curse at the same time, is sometimes the gigs where you travel are the ones that pay the best.
Well, because they're paying you for that stress. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go to a cheap gig if I have to do that. They better pay me for my time. Right. It's like I say to you, it's not, they pay me for the travel, not for the show.
Exactly.
It's because that's the work in those situations, for sure.
And this changes, as you get married. You've been married now for 6 years?
6 years.
And you and Tiffany have a new baby?
Just have a new baby. It's hard.
Little Katie's hard to be 5 months old now.
5 months old.
And that changes, man.
I've already been gone for a month and a half of it, and I'm leaving again this weekend. I've got another month away on the road in the next 6 weeks, and it's really hard. It's hard to be gone.
I was just talking to a friend on the podcast, and he's a musician. He travels a lot, and he said that before, when he was touring and things like that, before they had kids, it was hard. His wife would be like, "Oh, you're going all these cool places. You're getting to go," and it was almost like she was, wishing she was doing what he was doing.
Sure.
And then now he's on the road, and she's calling and saying, "Oh, the baby walked today," or the baby, and he's going like, now it's him on the road going, "I wish I was at home."
It's really hard. I'm going to do a cruise ship on Saturday in Hawaii for 2 weeks. I've done this a lot, and it's a great ship and a great gig, and and it's Hawaii. It's fantastic, and yet I'm kind of bummed that I'm leaving, and I feel like such an ass being like, I'm so disappointed that I'm going to get paid to do magic tricks in Hawaii for 2 weeks, but leaving the kid is tough, and leaving my wife is tough. And it's look, far be it for us to complain. There are other jobs that require travel, sometimes for much. I mean, think about military families. People are gone for a year at a time.
It's a very privileged conversation to complain to get. Get paid to go to Hawaii.
You watch like interviews with like supermodels, and they'll tell you about how it's really a hard job. They got to get up early, and it's exhausting, and it's freezing, and it's and I was like, that is probably all true. But nobody wants to hear a supermodel complain about their job.
Right.
And I kind of feel like
someone's like, I friggin' work at the DMV.
I know. I kind of feel like I'm doing that now. Like, nobody wants to hear how terrible your job in Hawaii is. But, and don't misunderstand. I feel very lucky that we get to do this.
Right.
But it's hard to be away. It is definitely hard.
And your perspective changes. It's funny how the things that you wanted when you were younger are different than when you get older. And that's why it's so important, I think, no matter where you're at, to just live in the moment and really experience whatever it is. If you're young and you're 20 and you're barely making it and you're driving 2 hours to do a gig for $25 to be an opener, enjoy it, man.
They'll buy you a beer, and maybe there's a hot girl at the bar. It's totally worth it.
Exactly. And you can use your card trick to pick up on it.
Exactly.
Right?
That always works. Yeah. Doesn't it always works?
Well, when did we ever think that girls like card tricks?
Like card tricks? The lies we tell ourselves to get us through this world. I don't know. The problem is you see like Copperfield and Blaine and these people like dating supermodels and famous people, and then you go, oh, it must be the magic tricks. It's not the magic tricks.
It's the money.
That's not why they're...
It's the money.
If only I could do some better sleight of hand. I would just have them falling at my feet, you know?
Oh, yeah. She's like, he wasn't very attractive, but then he did the Elmsley count.
Exactly.
And I just...
I have never seen a double lift like yours. Now we're doing Magic Inside nerd jokes.
I know, they're like,
boy.
double lift? Is that like an LA face job thing? Is that some sort of cosmetic surgery? If you were going to go back, we always play this nostalgia game of, if I could go back in time. If you could talk to 22-year-old Matt, you're out of school and you're deciding, that thing I studied, I'm not going to do that. What would you tell yourself?
One word. Plastics.
Plastics?
Do you know that reference?
No!
It's a little reference to The Graduate.
Do it again.
No. It's okay. You haven't seen the movie. Yeah. Edit it. Thanks. Edit that.
From The Graduate!
Edit that. Yeah, I'm old.
That's Rodney Dangerfield, right?
What?
Is it? No.
Dustin Hoffman.
I'm thinking about Back to School.
Graduate, same movie, same thing, right? What's the difference?
There could not be two different people in the world than Dustin Hoffman and Rodney Dangerfield.
No, I can see how you would confuse those.
Right. I mean, that is so.
You should cut all of this out. We should start over.
This is the part, people. This is the gym. This is the
where
lotto at the end.
The alcohol's
we
kicking
start delusional.
Delusional, right? Forget disillusion. Where's delusional?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that what I would tell me, which is what I would tell anybody young in Magic, is that you got to make a choice about whether you want it to be a hobby or a career. And if you want it to be a career, it's going to change the way you look at Magic and change the way you deal with Magic, and you're going to have to think about it in business terms, at least to some degree, if you want to make a living at it. And there's nothing wrong with being a part-time guy or an amateur guy if you just love Magic and want to do it, and going to be a dentist or whatever else. But if you if you want to make this your job, you should know that there's business to it. There's a lot of travel. You're going to be away from your family if you have a family. You're going to be on the road, which is, let's also be honest. 20 years ago, traveling didn't suck like it does now. So
it used to be fun, man.
It used to
They
be
used to write songs about it.
Yeah, traveling.
Frank Sinatra, "Come Fly with Me."
Well,
that was
he was flying private though. So
that's true.
Different.
That wasn't pre 9/11
right.
flying.
Yeah, I mean, it's travel back then is totally different than it is now. I mean, it's such a nightmare to travel now. For stuff. I am as shocked as anybody that 20 years later, I am making a living doing Magic shows for people. Yeah. I mean, I didn't necessarily become a superstar that I might have dreamed of when I was a teenager, but I have made a pretty good living in a lot of things for a lot of years, doing what I love, which is a privileged and unusual position that we are in. Yeah. And most people don't get to do. And people still say to me, "Oh, you're a magician. What's your real job?" And I kind of have to laugh at myself, because I'm like, yeah, it's better than your job. And, that's my job. And I'm getting paid more than you are to do what I love and to travel around. And like the supermodel story I told you earlier, nobody wants to hear you complain about it. So like, I'll do a Q&A on a cruise ship. People want to ask about what it's like. And what they want to hear is that it's wonderful. You get to travel the world and meet cool people and do what you love for a living. And when I go to work, people applaud. Yeah. And all of that is true. Man. All of that is true. And it's worth remembering at those times when you might die in a cab in Chile. It's all worth it for that.
And we've all had, and we continue to have. I mean, we were laughing earlier talking about horror stories as recent as last month that we both had. And so it's one of those things where I think that's encouraging, I think, for people who maybe are in kind of the downside of the roller coaster right now. To hear you say that and go, okay, yeah, it'll be worth it,
Well, and also just something that you had said to me earlier is that you feel like you have all these struggles and you're the only one having these struggles. But in fact, we all have these same struggles and stories and crazy experiences and horrible shows that happen once in a while, and hopefully less and less as you get better and your career goes on. But there are always these outlier shows that just, for some reason, don't gel right. Sometimes it's not even your fault. It's just the venue or the situation, or something goes wrong, and these things happen, and it's live entertainment. There's no editing. There's no There's no.
We're not going to fix this in post.
There's no fixing it in post. So I mean, we all have those stories. We were sharing stories about getting booked for shows where they don't speak any English and not being told that ahead of time. And
I did a show a few months ago, all Amish crowd.
Really?
Completely. Is this? I don't know if this is offensive. I don't know how else to say it. As Amish as you can get. I mean, they had the whole.
Can you be sort of Amish. I think you're either Amish
Is
or not.
it?
I don't know if there's a sort of Amish.
Well, they're breaking Amish now, right? Some
Like
of
the
those
horse
guys
and
are
buggy's got a
yeah.
car phone in it?
Well,
What is the,
well, I don't know.
What is the in-between Amish level?
I think you work at Intelligentsia and make coffee. I think that's the in-between Amish. Is
Oh, yeah?
the hipsters. That's like...
Don't they... But they have to grind it by hand, right?
Yeah, so it's still Amish, I guess.
Still Amish.
Somewhere, if they had the ability to listen to this in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, they'd be very
I think it's
offended right
Lancaster.
now. Is it Lancaster?
I think it is, but I don't know.
They can't Google it.
They can't Google it. But for your show, did you just Google something and suddenly that was the
Well,
trick?
no, I did the show. It was an entire Amish. It was a company Christmas party. It was a company of welders. All of them made over 150 grand a year. None of them had more than an eighth grade education. Awesome people. Didn't understand anything I was talking about. I didn't realize like how much I talk about pop culture and technology, and they don't know what any of it is.
Right. You got to do barn racing jokes. Got to rewrite. You got to know your audience, Taylor. You got to write to the crowd.
I know. You know.
Yeah, I know. You got to pull a horse out of a hat or something like that.
Right, pull a horse.
Yeah.
Just do what works, man. Don't reinvent the wooden wheel. Right. They actually arrived in buggies. It was wild.
Did they really?
They arrived in buggies.
That's amazing. Did you wear a buckled hat?
No, but you know how if you're in a restaurant and someone came in and they were dressed as an Amish man, it would be like, oh, that stands out.
Right.
If you're in a room and you're the only person not dressed as an Amish person, you finally get the feeling. It's bizarre.
Were you like quickly taking off the Bluetooth earpiece and you're like,
guess I'm not using music in the show.
Oh, that's awkward. Wow.
Give us one horror story to.
Oh well, I think I have shared this with you, but I did a show. It's probably almost a decade ago now. I was booked for a Korean Men's Golf Club Association. I didn't even really know that was what the group was exactly, but it was a holiday party, and it was in a hotel in Koreatown. But they were doing karaoke, and they asked me if I could go on late so they could finish their karaoke, which is always nice to be bumped for karaoke. And
that's wonderful.
A small little
your audience
screeching
was
Silent Night to karaoke, and it was great.
Your audience was your opening act.
My audience was the opening act. Tough act to follow,
right?
As I was about to find out. So I was booked to do like 45, 50 minutes, something like that. I got up there and started performing and quickly realized that most of them really spoke no English. And I do comedy magic, so a lot of my material is based on the comedy part. It's what fills out the show, and it's important, the audience interaction and things like that.
Right.
And very quickly, they did not know what I was talking about. And so what I started doing was shortening routines, cutting out jokes, trying to explain things in very basic language that at least they would get the trick. And I did the show, but I shortened so much of the material that I finished in like a half hour, and I was done. And I started to say thank you, good night, and the guy in charge looked over at me and he tapped his watch. He said, "No, 45 minutes." And I was like, "Well, you don't understand what I'm saying."
Were you cutting it short, or did you blow through?
I blew through stuff so fast.
I've had shows like that where it's like, this is an hour's worth of material, and in 20 minutes somehow I did it all.
Yeah, I know.
Because I'm just like, I want to be anywhere else.
I know. I blew through all the material.
So you've used all your material. You're ready to walk off.
So I'm pulling like cards out of my case and making up tricks that I can kind of do for them and trying to explain. I mean, it was I was younger then. Now I'm sure I would have had a better out, but it was.
What would you do today?
I don't know. I would have found out who the client was ahead of time and built a show that didn't need English, probably. Like, it was.
That's when that became one of the questions on the initial
does the audience speak
conversation.
English? I actually do ask that now because sometimes I'll get a call for a corporate and they'll say it's like I don't know, a Japanese company or something like that, and I do ask who's there. Do they speak English, or because often they won't. They'll be bringing people in from other countries who don't really speak English.
Yep.
And speaking English a little bit is not the same as speaking enough to understand comedy.
Right.
So they need a certain level of fluency to get the jokes and the references.
And the jokes don't necessarily travel.
Right.
I did a show in France once with an interpreter, and no one was laughing. And then they started laughing, but at all the wrong moments. And I found out afterward, the interpreter felt bad and was like, he was
ad-libbing for you?
Yeah, he was just like, this is hilarious in America, just laugh. So they just laugh, and I'd be like, I was telling a story about my dead grandmother. That's not, they're like, she died. I think some people think Magic's the best for those kind of situations because it's visual and they're but
and some Magic is
comedy based Magic.
And some Magic is, and if you know ahead of time that you're gonna have a language barrier, I can at least adjust my material and pick stuff that's more visual based and the focus becomes more on the trick itself than on the presentation and the through line and the storyline and callbacks and comedy and things that I like and that I use to make my show interesting for me. But in certain situations you just push the magic tricks. And the magic and it's true that magic does work in any language. Like the laws of physics are the same everywhere. So when you break them with a magic trick, it is as astounding to somebody in France or Japan or Africa or anywhere else as it is to somebody here. And that is one of the neat things about magic. And I think it's another reason why the magic community is so tight-knit, not only just in the U.S., but around the world.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, magicians around the world are very close because of this reason.
I'm excited for the next series you do, the next web series you do. Because, I mean, I'm telling you guys, go check out Match Disillusioned. It's disillusionshow.com.
Yeah, or my website, mattmarcy.com.
Mattmarcy.com.
There's a jingle,
But go check out Matt's site, check out his show, Disillusioned. And I'm excited, man, because like you mentioned, this was your first time learning. There's a huge learning curve when you're doing production. And you'll see when you watch the video, the level of production is very high.
Yeah.
And so what I'm excited about is as great as this one is, the next time you're going to go into it being like, okay.
Well, and writing too. Like writing a piece for the stage is not the same as writing a piece for a web series. And I learned, these are, like I told you before, these are each discrete episodes with their own sort of storyline. And even though there's an overarching theme to the season and kind of a story that develops, it wasn't as serialized as I would make the next season, where it really is more short episodes that run one into the next and don't need to each be their own sort of story with a punch at the end. I think that is more stylistically what is popular right now and probably would be what I would do the next time. But that's a learning curve. I mean, this was the first time I did it and it didn't totally suck. And so I feel like that's a success.
It was good, man. Go check it out, guys. Matt, thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Appreciate you, man.
Anytime, man.
We're going to go talk about decks of cards and secrets.
Oh, and the winning lottery numbers. You gave them 2.
Oh, yes. The winning lotteries are 2,
14,
35,
26,
486.
486? Does it go that high?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's
4 and 86.
And 86.
And those are the winning lottery numbers. We just don't know what week in the future they will win.
Yes.
But some week between now and infinity, that group of numbers.
Also, there's a person who has an A somewhere in their name who will purchase a lottery ticket this week. They're listening to the program right now.
And somebody is thinking of the Queen of Hearts.
That's right.
Was that you?
It was me.
You were thinking of the Queen of Hearts.
How the hell did you do that?
Very, very good.
You're amazing.
Very good.
Bye, guys.